it is 5:30, so I'm calling this meeting to order. First, a reminder that meetings of the Select Board are meetings conducted in public. They are not meetings of the public. Nonetheless, members of the public shall be afforded reasonable opportunities to express opinions about matters conducted by the Select Board so long as order is maintained. The rules for public comment are at the conclusion of a Select Board discussion on an agenda item, but before any action is taken, there may be 10 minutes afforded to public comment. Comments made by the public must be addressed to the chair or to the Select Board as a whole and not to any individual members of the Select Board or members of the public. Members of the public must be acknowledged by the chair before speaking. If a member of the public has already spoken on a topic, they shall not be recognized again until others have first been given the opportunity to comment. Order and decorum shall be maintained throughout the meeting. Personal, impertinent, threatening, or profane remarks will not be tolerated. For those who are participating via Zoom, please note that chat is not an appropriate avenue for public comment. All public comments must be made verbally when acknowledged by the chair. Please silence all cell phones, and a reminder to all that this meeting is being recorded and may appear on the internet. So, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none.
I thought we had one, or we don't anymore.
No, I put that on.
You put it on, okay.
The rescue that is on there.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any adjustments to the agenda? All right, moving on to approval of minutes for April 19th, 2023.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of April 19th, 2023.
For a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of April 19th, 2023. Anybody have anything they noticed? Anybody? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to public comments on items not on the agenda. Is there public comment in the room? Is there public comment online, Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two brief points. The first one is I'm still working on the question of, on the matter of getting broadband everywhere in Putney sooner than the communications union district thinks they can do it. And in that regard, I want to mention that it's in the trade press today that Consolidated Communications plan to complete their work in the Southwestern Vermont Communications Union district surrounding Bennington by the end of this year with fiber to everyone in that communications union district. So this may be an indication of what's a possibility for us, and I'm still looking into it. The other thing is, regarding the introduction that you always make at these meetings, which you have a model which is from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, I suggest to everyone, both in the room and members of the public, to have a look at a very recent commentary in the Digger. The headline is, "Honoring the Right to be Rude Serves Our Democratic Republic." Now, the reason I commend this to you is because the author is Meg Mott, who is our Town of Putney Town Meeting moderator, to which she refers in her commentary. And not only that, she is a nationally eminent authority on these matters. So if you haven't had a look at it, do. It is a brilliant commentary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there other public comment online? Any other public comment in the room? Anybody on the Select Board have anything to say? All right. Moving on to I'm looking at the minutes instead of the agenda. Moving on to the warrants to the treasurer.
Make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer upon completion of review.
Do you have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants to the treasurer approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer upon completion of review. Karen?
Payroll warrant dated May 5th, 2023, in the amount of $17,866.19. Normal, except for, you'll see Alyssa Harlow, the very
Okay.
first one.
Yeah.
As the select board knows that my administrative assistant, our administrative assistant resigned on April 10th. And Alyssa was the administrative assistant / treasurer. So she is doing some work for me. She is still in our payroll system. And as soon as I can find a replacement, have them trained, then she will stay on payroll for the time being.
Okay.
It will be short term. Accounts payable dated April 22nd through May 5th, 2023 in the amount of $49,568.12. A nice small one, which I enjoy to see.
What is Rock and Rescue?
Rock and Rescue is fire department, and it was for training ropes.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
so it was a new vendor.
Sprague Stonework.
Sprague Stonework, I believe, was the library, but let me just double check with you. That was for library, repair 2 broken pavers.
Wax Bank,
Wex Bank is for our gasoline, their gas cards for the highway department and the fire department.
how about Beamer's DB?
That is our retirement, our fringe for employees.
Vermont Employees Retirement System. Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement System.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Town Manager's Report.
So roads are in fairly good shape. There's a couple trouble spots with the rain we've been having. One being South Windmill Hill and Vinegar Lane, so Brian will be looking at both of those. South Windmill Hill actually has a washout, but it's created by a culvert that's plugged. There's a rock in there, so they're gonna probably have to pull it. And usually when they're plugged like that, the fire department can go out and blow it out with the water, but not this one.
Not
So,
if it's a rock.
we are aware of it. We will get to it as soon as possible. Brian is working on quotes and engineering plans for the box culvert on Westminster Road. And we're working on a bid to put out in the paper for proposals. And he's also working on an estimate for River Road South paving, which the paving project will start from Route 5, go past the town garage, approximately 1.1 miles.
Okay.
So, again, that's gonna go out to bid as well, so we'll be doing an RFP for that. And we do have a grant for that one as well. The Highway Department is also working on cleaning up some of the trees from that winter storm. You know, some that are still close to the road, so they wanna get them out of the right of way. There's quite a bit of tree damage. So that's gonna take a little while as well. See, V-Trans sent me a letter regarding parking along US Route 5 near the corner of Christian Square. They do agree, and they have recommended to the commission that a short no parking zone be established on that corner. So their traffic committee will meet on Tuesday, May 23rd at 1 p.m. and then we will hear something back from them. And then I'm not sure if the state will put the hash marks there, or if they'll ask the
Let us
town to
do
do them.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll figure that piece out, but that's where we're at with that
Who
project.
usually does the lines, usually the state,
Um,
like the yellow lines and
So the state does, yeah, they
Okay.
paint the center lines for us.
all right,
And, well, not the state, but they contract it out
sure,
for like town roads.
okay,
And then the highway department does our crosswalks.
okay. And the parking areas too?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have done out front here,
Okay.
so we'll see.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone noticed, but the street sweeper did come through on Route 5.
Always notice.
So I did get a phone call from Mark Pickering with V-Trans wondering why Putney had so much dirt and debris. And I'm like, how do you answer that question?
Dirty place.
I'm like, come on, Mark. So he and I are playing phone tag. I used to work with Mark at SPD Associates, so yeah, I'm gonna have to come up with a creative answer. But anyway, so I wanted to mention, I met with Peter Rood. He was formerly the town administrator of Guilford, Vermont. Had lunch with him. We had a great conversation. He stated that grant-wise, you know, if I need any help, to call him and he'll, if he can support us, he will. So I think that's a good networking connection resource to have. Peg Alden, Lisa Papazian, and I met with Gretchen Haverlock, and she is the economic development consultant over in Wilmington. So we had a good meeting with her, and there'll be more discussion on that later in the agenda under ARPA. Let's see, I met with John Grant regarding an email from the state of Vermont with a confirmed case of emerald ash borer in Putney.
Oh,
So John is our tree warden, and Bill Harlow is our deputy tree warden. And John is very active right now, and he plans on attending the Vermont Arbor Day Conference on May 19th in Randolph. We had a really good conversation. He's going to reach out to Elise at the state of Vermont, and I'm going to share that email also with the Conservation Commission and Carrie Ann Tom Hinckley. Now, Conservation Commission did do an inventory of the ash trees in Putney. They didn't complete it, but for the most part it's done. I've shared that with John as well. I don't know what the tree warden appointment is going to look like, but if we see more invasive species, I wouldn't be surprised that we see some sort of discussion around a budget to prevent more damage, but I don't know what that looks like until John comes back with more information.
and that inventory they did, it was along the roadways, right? They
That's
weren't
correct.
surveying all of the forests, just the
No.
roadways, okay.
Yeah. Town right away. Let's see. I met with Ann Golem and Bonnie North today. They were representing Windham Regional Commission. They were going around to different towns and asking about municipal sharing of equipment and services, and what specifically, you know, Putney might be interested in. And I spent a good hour with them. Ann is a select person in Newfane, and Bonnie is a select person up in Rockingham. So they have quite a bit of knowledge and experience. So, they're collecting data right now, and then they're gonna come back to the towns with some sort of plan.
Cool.
So basically, I talked to them about like grant writers, economic development consultants that towns can share.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not putting them in individual budgets,
Yeah.
and all kinds of other interesting things. Lately, it's all been meetings. Met with Lisa Papazian and Maureen Casella about the renovation of Town Hall and HVAC system. And Morgan Casella kind of like looked at us and said, this is a big project for 2 people, and you might want to consider a project manager. So, I think eventually down the road, we may have to consider that, because
Yeah.
I have to agree with Morgan, and it's not in my wheelhouse, even though I work for 2 different engineering firms,
Mhm.
but,
You can only wear so many hats.
well, it's not, we have to be proactive and do our due diligence and not expend energy and time and, you know, there's too many ducks to line up with a project this big,
Yeah.
so, but there's more to come on that. Met with Katie Emon in Libby North regarding Recreation League and how to best to transition the league to the town, if that ever, you know, happens next year. They do struggle. You know, they struggle with getting coaching and money, and so I did ask Libby to continue operating under their bylaws, because they are not a town department, so they should maintain, you know, their rules and regulations, and you know, continue doing the best they can at this moment. But if there's ways that we can support them, you know, we'll do our best. But
Okay.
so.
Penny?
Yeah, what would be a process of that transition? What would that look like?
Well, for one, I would need to know their budget, and then I would have to look at the pool budget, and then come up with, you know, an overall budget to operate, you know, a rec league for youth and adult sports. And then, like the library, they operate with a board of trustees, so, you know, ultimately, you know, could they continue doing it that way and still be under the umbrella of the town? Yes. Having the rec league under the town umbrella allows them to get more grant funding too, because as a nonprofit, they struggle like other nonprofits. It's not easy to get grants, you know. So hopefully by next budget season, 25, we can have it all ironed out. The other thing too is, because I met with Larry, that was like a whole another half a day. And this board can create a rec department on their own. So if you choose to do that. So I need to like look at it closer to see what the impact would be, you know, financially. But what I've been hearing from the public and the task forces is, you know, people want recreation for their kids in Putney.
Yeah.
So,
And didn't we talk about this at town meeting too?
little
Wasn't
bit,
that
yeah.
It was a
a
non-binding
There's a
resolution.
non-binding resolution?
non-binding
Right.
article, and people favored the idea,
Right.
so.
So, I know this is, I mean, we don't want to get deep into this.
Right.
But just quickly, you know, it's hard to do this quickly. Advantages, disadvantages to them holding on to a board like the library does versus folding it into the town as a department.
Well, long-term, I see more advantages than being like
To what?
a town department rather than on their own. Because they can fold anytime. I mean, you know, so school enrollment has declined, right? You're gonna have more older people, you know, wanting to do exercises or sports, you know, so how do you support it all, you know? The liability insurance too, Peg, under the town is a plus too for them. Because like nonprofits, they can't afford. It's like the ball field, you know? you can't afford to put insurance up there so people can use the field. You know, it makes it underutilized, but being under the umbrella of the town, it gives them more security, and we can support the community for youth sports and adult sports. Kind of like Brattleboro, I'm kind of looking at that model. And so it's parks and recreation. Not just a rec league, but it's parks and rec.
Yeah.
So it would be like if we had public parks too, it would be all under that umbrella. The pool would be under that umbrella. Right now, I'm doing the pool with the help of Ruby and Katie and Beverly Wright. But it takes time. It takes a lot of my time. If we had a parks director, that person would be in charge of the whole scope.
Yeah.
It'd make it a lot easier.
Well, I look forward to
Yeah.
continuing to
forward.
push that conversation along.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear from task forces too, once they get all their subcommittees and their projects. Because I think that's gonna come into play too, more than we know. So. Okay, so moving on. The pool. I have a proposal for $1,800 to do some needed work at the pool. That's like doors, bathrooms, floors, and replacing a toilet. This one got broke. Rick Pettit is up there he's gonna paint the ramp with a grit to avoid the slipping and seal up the lights. There was a leak over the winter,
Oh,
so we lost some water. Joe's up there, he was cleaning all the leaves and stuff out. This is the other thing, Parks and Rec, right? So instead of getting people to like clean out pool, we'll have a park director, a Recs director, they can handle all this stuff and coordinate it. So, yeah.
I'm just laughing at my vision of the director and they're cleaning out all the leaves. That's a great idea.
Hopefully,
Put that in the job description.
You know, so we're preparing to like open mid-June for the pool because the kids get out of school like June 16th. So we're ahead of the curve right now, which is very exciting. Tomorrow I'm in my Leadership Vermont class in Springfield. Friday I'm taking off, not working Saturday or Sunday. I'm
Good.
just making that
all right.
public.
So if I get emails from you.
And that's right, no emails. I'm also scheduled a vacation for June 7th through the 12th. Letting you know now.
Okay.
And I will remind you, the chair too, that you're gonna have to do the agenda, but I'll talk to you about that.
Okay.
And that's about it. I have probably more, but that's too long as it was.
Okay. Is there public comment in the room on the town manager's report?
Yeah, I have a question, Lindsay Olson. You talked about the traffic on Clifton Square. What end of that?
So it's the corner of Route 5 and Christian Square. So that corner coming out, when somebody's parked right there on Route 5,
Yeah, okay,
no one can see.
yeah.
So, and people do park right to the corner.
Yeah, I
I'm
witnessed
just
that this
amazed.
morning.
I have all kinds of pictures. The state wants, evidence too, so I'm gonna send it.
You can take a picture of my car, I think I parked it.
No, there was a tractor trailer truck out there one day,
Oh wow.
and I'm like, yeah, that's not good. But it's right there on the corner, Nancy.
Yeah, so it's not the paper mill side, it's the
It's,
other store side.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah, it's right where you put your sign,
Yeah,
right there.
okay.
So.
Other public comments in the room? Public comments online, Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two brief points. First one is regarding renovations of the town hall, which is an historic building that I believe date to the late 19th century. Putney's Lisa Papazian is now chair of the Preservation Trust of Vermont. In other words, she's among the highest ranking people working in historic preservation now in Vermont. And I don't wish to volunteer her, of course, but I take the liberty of suggesting that we invite her, we invite her to exercise oversight of this project, because I know from other consultations I've had with her that she has a great deal of experience in this area, while many project managers will be accustomed to working with contemporary construction and may not know that much about how you handle old buildings. And sometimes applying modern techniques to older buildings is the worst possible thing you can do. Now, the other matter is concerning the proposed recreation department. Yes, it would need a director, but basically we have a season here and then we have an off-season. So something that would need to be considered is what would the director do during the off-season? Or would we in fact perhaps recruit from someone who's studying this field in college to work for us only during the season? Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I think that they do stuff year-round at the school. They run the youth
They do soccer,
basketball, soccer for the
Baseball.
elementary school.
It's during the
So-
summer, they,
So there is still activity, not as much, but there is activity in the winter. But thank you for that comment. Is there any other comments online on the town manager's report? Any more comments in the room? Anybody on the select board have anything else to add? All right, moving right along to boards, committees, and commissions. The first one is the appointment, consideration, and approval to the Development Review Board as an alternate.
so, Mr. Mark Zeider is here.
As I was talking, this is Mark Zeider, I live on Single Pine Road. I was talking to Pitt and he said that he thought there was an opening for an alternate on the Development Review Board.
Yeah, I believe there's two. Yeah,
I'm willing to do it.
okay. And we have a fairly short letter of interest here.
Mr. Zeider spoke to Pip as well,
Okay,
so we do have 2 openings for alternates.
yeah. It's good to have alternates
Yes.
for that board because people do have frequent conflicts of interest and
Vacations.
and vacations, yeah. So it's definitely good to have alternates for that. How does the board want to proceed since we still don't have an appointment policy?
Well, I would love, hi Mark, I don't know you, I'm Peg Alden. Hi there, I would just love to hear, what your interest is in being on the board and.
Well, I'm a retired engineer. I have an interest in technical matters. I feel that I should contribute to the town. I just retired, so I've got time now. And so I plan on becoming more involved with the town as well.
So, and I assume Pip recommended?
I would recommend Mr. Zeider as well.
Okay. So we can either go ahead and do it today, or we may.
Want me to leave the room?
We made, we made Jeanette wait for a month now, so I don't know what we want to do here, but I'm comfortable with voting today.
So we do have an application for the May 16th Development Review Board meeting.
Okay.
So it would be nice.
Nice to have another person on.
Yes.
All right.
And let's just make sure we put this on our agenda.
I'm pretty sure.
For
It's
our
going to be May
special meeting.
24th. It's already on there.
Okay, all right, just because we're so close to having a really good practice here.
Yeah.
But we keep
Still
stumbling
flying.
over ourselves.
Still
all the
flying
time.
by the seat of our pants. Yes.
We're very close.
All right. So can I hear a motion to appoint Mark Zeider as an alternate to the DRB?
So
moved.
Can I have a second?
I think that's a no.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Mark Zeider to the DRB, the Development Review Board, as an alternate. Is there further discussion among the board? Are there any comments in the room? Any comments online? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, welcome aboard.
Okay, can I give him his bag?
Oh,
Wait,
wait, we
Mark,
have,
can't leave yet.
can't leave yet. Peg's got something.
I have something for you, for new people who join committees this year. I'm sorry I don't have them for last year, people. So here you go, this is
Donate
your.
to the public radio. Thank you so much.
Mark, I'll send you an email for the next meeting with an agenda and a packet, just so you can get accustomed to the process.
Okay.
All right?
Great.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, moving on to the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Board. Swift?
Hi, thanks for having me. So I want to just, before I dive in, in the next week or so, I'll be sharing our just approved list of what are the commemorative months where you will be commemorating every year, and our statement on that. So we can share that at the next select board meeting. I didn't get a chance to get it to y'all. So this will be an ongoing thing. So May is Asian American Pacific Heritage Month. Pacific Islander Heritage Month, so I have it wrong on my list here. Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. It is also Older Americans Month. I'm going to start with our statement on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So, Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month celebrates Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. That's how it's worded, sorry. Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month is how it's titled. It recognizes the pain and joy and the history of these peoples here in America. From beautiful celebrations, holidays, and foods, to the tragedy of internment camps, blame for the pandemic and hate crimes. While the population of Asians and Pacific Islanders is small here in Vermont, it has grown 54% from 2010 to 2020. This is a month to learn something new, take a moment to pause and reflect on the past, read a book or an article, donate to Stop AAPI Hate, which is Asian American Pacific Islander, hate.org. Check out events at the Asian Cultural Center of Vermont, which I just learned about, that's just down in Brattleboro, which is a local organization, or even go eat at High Tide, which reopened this year, which is owned by local Thai Vermonters. I also recommend this article from Brave's Little State on NPR, which is called What's the Asian American Experience Like in Vermont? And I don't know if there's a way to put links in the minutes, but Karen has that, and you guys have that in front of you. And then I also learned, after I spoke with you, that the office, shared the statement with you. The Office of Racial Equity and Vermont Human Rights Commission they did something similar for Black History Month. They are doing a series for the month of weekly interviews. So there'll be 4 interviews, and they will be online, and I have a link that I shared with Karen just now. And they're also doing a dinner and a panel. I think it's in Rutland, but it might be in Montpelier. I'll have to check that out. But that will be where a panel discussion with the interviewees. So if you're interested in checking more of that out, you can go to the Vermont Human Rights Commission website, or the Office of Racial Equity. So I think they're doing more things to commemorate their these monthly events as well. So that's the first one. And the second one is Older Americans Month. So, May is Older Americans Month. The U.S. Administration for Community Living declared the 2023 theme as Aging Unbound, which offers an opportunity to explore diverse aging experiences and discuss how communities can combat stereotypes. This month, to honor our neighbors, friends, this is a month to honor our neighbors, friends, and beloveds who are aging, which I realize is all of us, but the ones that are on the see them for their contributions, see them for their art, see them for their knowledge, see them. Don't let the habit of letting the old be unseen continue. You can go to a local art gallery of some of our more gray, or volunteer at Putney Community Cares to help create spaces where anyone, no matter their age, can be whomever they decide. There's also a great series going on starting this month, and this is a quote. So through the Creative Aging Grant from the Vermont Arts Council, the Etsy Organ Museum will provide a creative singing and musical history experience called Songs from the Tin Pan Alley, while bringing the many healthy benefits of singing for seniors. The first 6 classes will be about learning songs from Tin Pan Alley, singing them, and sharing some musical fun with the group. Classes are free and start on Wednesday, May 17th at 1:30 p.m. and will meet every Wednesday at the same time until June 21st, and culminating concert is scheduled for Saturday, June 24th at 1 p.m. at the Exie Organ Museum in Brattleboro. Singing experience is not required, and the group will be accompanied by the Green Mountain Strummers, a Brattleboro ukulele group, and an organist playing from playing an Exie from the museum. Sign up, you can email sonrosso745, which is XROSANO745 So, and there's an adorable picture that I don't know if that'll get in the minutes either, but it's very cute of these elderly people with their instruments excited to be playing music. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thanks, Sue.
Is there comments on the select board?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I know you're focusing on, we are all focusing on older Vermonters this month, but I just want to make an observation that if we were to look at the age of people involved in the town, that I feel like so many of the young people who are getting involved in town have come through the equity and inclusion committee task force, and I just want to commend the advisory committee for that, for the ways in which they are pulling diverse people, and particularly around age, into town involvement. So thank you. I really appreciate that. I really am noticing it, so it's exciting. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I will say there's not a Younger Americans Month and that we're going to be commemorating, but yeah, thank you for the appreciation, and I am curious on how that continues. And as a person that said out loud at the task force meeting that I will be supporting creating a youth advisory council for the select board, that's still in the works. I'm doing some background work still. There's talking to someone that is connected with the youth advisory board that's connected to the school. We talked about it at the community center meeting. I still have yet to talk to your child, Eileen, and just kind of weaving in some of the active youth that are already going on and centering it. But definitely next year is I hope, if not sooner.
All right, nice. Any other comments on the board? Comments in the room? Comments online, Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Probably I should first mention that at age 80, I'm not old yet, so I guess I'm not included in this. The other thing is, I see that you have referred to the Equity and Inclusion Advisory Board. So it appears the name has been changed. What is up with that?
That would be a typo.
Thank you.
Is there any other comments online? All right, thank you, Swift.
Thank you.
So we are moving on to select board items, new business. The first of which is the sewer, new connection review and approval for 151 Westminster Road.
So as the water sewer commissioners, like director commissioners,
And the lead board.
and this is your responsibility to review. And so basically it's a connection to sewer. There's already a single family house on the property, and there is a garage which is proposed to have a 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
I do have a zoning application for that as well. So this is the application. It's been designed by Michael Marquis, who is a certified engineer. And the state requires this, and they require approval prior to the application being sent to the state of Vermont. So, it's just for sewer, it's not for water. And it's for an estimated 140 gallons per day. They already have 210 gallons per day at that site.
So the main house is already connected. This would be a secondary
This is a
connection for
second
the
connection,
apartment.
yes.
Okay. And I assume we have the capacity.
We have the capacity right now, yes. And I just actually was sent a link to a grant for getting a grant to revamp our water sewer policy. Something that we should be looking at, because it hasn't been done in forever.
Wow, yeah, okay.
So-
All right,
You say right now we have the capacity. Is there some issues or?
No,
Okay.
well, I don't worry about
Because
sewer.
140 gallons is not a lot, I mean,
Right,
compared to other places.
right. If it was commercial, then, you know, it might be an issue, but, so water in, water out. Of course, with sewer, you can have stormwater runoff as well, which will increase your flows
Yep.
into the treatment plant. We don't have any control over that. As far as our water, when I spoke to Chris Hayes several years back, he had stated that we had, you know, roughly 80 units, and he wanted to save those for residential. So,
for the water system.
for the water system.
And the water system doesn't go all the way up there anyway, right?
It does not.
Okay,
That's a private well.
okay.
Yeah, the water only goes, a
halfway
certain
up
ways up,
Kimball.
yeah, Kimball Hill,
Yeah,
because of the ledges. But anyways, at some point too, I will be recommending, and it's been talked about and brought up, that at some point we are gonna have to do an evaluation of the wastewater treatment plant based on housing needs, infill housing in the village, and, you know, in the future, you know, growth for residential and or businesses. So it's coming. It's probably this year or next.
okay.
And then we'll have a better handle on,
What our capacity is and what we will need in the future,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Karen, is there a specific reason why this connection hasn't existed before now?
so the primary dwelling has a connection to the sewer. Some places too, you know, private septic, you know, but because he's got a garage and now he wants to put the apartment over the garage, you can't connect one building to another. So you gotta have a separate connection. But- So he
Thanks.
wants to build an apartment.
So that's needed now?
Yes, yeah. And the septic's right there at the road, so it's just easier for him to connect.
Do they have a contractor who's in place to do this?
I'm sure, yes,
Okay.
yeah. A lot of the local contractors do the water and septic hookups for the municipal system. They know where all the pipes are.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there further discussion among the board? I do have a comment online, Mr. Fairman.
Madam Chair, just a question for our town manager, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but in case she knows or perhaps could tell us later, do you have any idea how close we are to capacity of our water and sewer systems?
So I can tell you I've been tracking the monthly reports that Joe has to give to the state, and we still have capacity, Mr. Fairman, but it depends, you know, if something big wanted to come online, you know, that required 15,000 gallons a day, well, that's gonna impact our system.
So what is this potential project down here? Where's that gonna put us?
That one's not bad. That one's only like, I thought it was 2,500. So 25 units times 210 gallons. That's where it's gonna put us.
Okay.
So that one I'm not worried about. But anything that starts creeping up to, you know, 15, a laundromat?
A laundry.
I would
was
be
thinking.
concerned about that. And that would be something I would talk to Chris Hayes about
Yeah.
before we even brought one online.
Yeah,
So, a brewery, probably out of the question.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, you
Yeah,
know.
anything that would use a lot of water for its processing.
Right,
Yeah.
right. 2/3 of our water system is Landmark College. So, we have opportunities to look at our system now. And if we're looking at expanding, you know, to, you know, additional spurs somewhere else, you know, but once our task forces, come up with data, we might see a better picture. So, I'm conscious of the system and what comes across my desk.
This
This
is definitely
one I'm
not gonna
not.
break the bank though.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
I have more comments. Heather?
Hi, I just wanted to make sure I heard right. Karen, you said you were concerned about a laundromat on top of what's already been proposed for apartment buildings, or as well as?
No, as well as, Heather, so like,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And then my second question is, as far as the subcommittees from the VCRD, what information are you looking for regarding water access, sewer access, things like that?
I'm not sure what I'm looking for yet, because I know there's a lot going on between the task forces and the subcommittees, and I know there's some duplication. So I think once we determine like projects, that's what I'm gonna be looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear, is there anything from the inventory side that we should be looking at for any other project regarding water and sewer?
I'm not sure about that, because I can't really tell you what the task forces, what inventories they have taken already. Because I haven't seen any of the reports, Heather.
Right, we haven't made them yet.
Okay.
We're just starting to compile them.
Right, and I know the ARPA committee has done inventory and asset, you know, reports, so,
Okay.
yeah. I think within, in the next few months, you know, as the data comes out, then it'll be more visible for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be talking with our contractor anyway.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Furman?
Madam Chair, I would just like to ask our town manager for clarification, because I'm unfamiliar with one thing that she said. If I understood you correctly, town manager, you referred to 210 gallons a day per unit at a place like the Putney Gateway development. And you know, as a layperson in these matters, I would have thought it would depend not on the unit, but on the number of people. Could you please clarify?
No, that's usually what I see from the engineer, Mr. Fairman. And that's the average, you know. The state, well, the engineer looks at it too, you know, by like how many bedrooms, kitchen, bathrooms, and then how many people. And, you know, I rely on their information, but for like a single unit, the average I've been seeing is 210 gallons per day. And mind you that some single units probably don't produce that much a day. They could probably produce less.
Thank you. And by the way, I did not intend to challenge what you said. It was simply to clarify it. So now I understand it's an average, and of course it goes plus or minus, as you said, depending on whether it's a studio or a 3-bedroom townhouse. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So I don't believe we've put a motion on the table yet. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 151 Westminster Road sewer connection.
For a second.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the sewer connection for 151 Westminster Road. Is there further discussion among the board? Any other comments in the room? Any other comments online? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
The next piece is the request for a proposal for the Putney Fire Department Operations Analysis Review, discussion and approval. Is this in here? Yeah.
In your packet is the request for proposals, Putney Fire Department Operations Analysis. I said I was going to bring this to the board. Here it is. So basically, this is the same concept as Williston, Vermont. Brattleboro did a similar one, but it was more focused on EMS. So this proposal basically, we'll put this out, and the consultant, what I expect is to get a finished product, a report, once they evaluate the operations at the fire department. So they're gonna be looking at all the equipment, the capital planning, recruiting, staffing, all the internal, like, software programs, how we can create revenue streams, and basically just doing a total analysis of our current existing model and seeing how we can either expand that or improve it for the future. So I think it's very important, and I will let this board know that I've spoken to several people. I can tell you that Rockingham right now is looking at doing the same thing as this. They have 3 departments that they're contending with. Towns are talking about sharing regional resources. And that may come out of a report from a consultant.
Okay.
So,
So we have to act on this, or is this just information?
so what I'm gonna ask the board to do, so Brattleboro, I think their, analysis cost them about $38,000. Williston was $30,000. I'm thinking, we're a small town, but I'm thinking $30,000.
Probably, right.
So we don't have like a special, well, we have a special fund, the Public Safety Reimbursement Special Fund. There's approximately $118,000 in there right now. I would request, if we put this RFP out, that the funds come from that special fund.
Okay.
I think this is a very important step right here for our fire department. And if we want to maintain community service to our residents, we need to really evaluate and have a plan.
Okay. So we don't need to vote on this RFP. This is,
No, I can send it
I'll
out
send it out.
as
Okay.
long as,
Where does it go? Where do you send it?
so I am gonna end up putting it on Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, because a lot of people pull from there. There are 2 other places that I can post it. One's the state website, and then there's another one which is a national one. Just know that there's only certain organizations that do this type of work.
Pretty
And they will be
specialized.
national, but some are set up where they've got people on the East Coast. So depending on how many proposals we get back,
Yeah. Okay.
we may get 3. If we get more than that, I'd be surprised, but,
That would be nice.
right,
More than one, yeah.
yeah.
Further discussion among the board? Is there public comment in the room? Public comment online, Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, I take the liberty of suggesting that in looking at these proposals when they come in, that we perhaps favor organizations that are more local, preferably from Vermont, as opposed to, as Brattleboro did, an organization that is that is headquartered in Denver, Colorado. Because in our very small state, population only 639,000, Fire Department mutual aid has enormous importance that it does not have in states that have populations in the millions. And I'm not sure that a national organization coming in to look at a fire department like Putney's would be able to look at it in terms of, it's not just Putney, it's everyone who surrounds Putney within mutual aid that actually is involved here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Discussion on the board? All right, I guess we can move on then to the bid proposal for auditing services and review, discussion, recommendation, and approval. So this is our auditor, right?
Yeah, auditing services, it's a 3-year contract that I request for proposal out and bids.
Okay.
So I solicited 12 companies
Wow.
and we received 3 bids.
Okay.
So R.H. Smith and Company is our current auditor. And then we have Batchelanders Associates from Barre, Vermont. And then Sullivan and Powers, they're out of Montpelier. So the quote on the right-hand side, so R.H. Smith is at $14,100, and that is up about $1,100 from last year. They also, I talked to our current auditor, and they spent about 117 hours on our audit for fiscal year 22. Their proposal is for 131 hours. Batchlander and Sullivan Powers, they're up over 200 hours for work for their audit. And then Batchlander is at $29,425 for the first year, and Sullivan Powers is at $32,000. I can tell you right now, we don't have the money in the budget for those 2 companies.
Okay.
And I was wondering why the price range was so dramatic, and then I noticed that the hours are almost doubled.
Doubled, yeah.
So I spoke to Sullivan Powers today. The first year for a different auditor, they have to know our system. They're all accustomed to NEMREC anyway, but they gotta get the lay of the land,
Yeah.
learn who we are, how we do things.
Yeah.
And but the second and third year, they're still $30,000.
Yeah.
So I can say the last 3 years with R.H. Smith, we were able to work with them. You know, Alyssa was here for the most part, 2 years out of the 3. She was comfortable with them, they worked well together, and are there mistakes? Sure. Did they cost us money? No. So the auditor is only as good as the information we give them. So I'm confident and comfortable with R.H. Smith.
Okay.
I don't have it in the budget to have a $30,000 auditor, and honestly, I don't think we need one.
I mean, I'm comfortable with our current auditor, if you are.
I am.
Is there discussion on the board? Comments in the room? Comments online, Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, being accustomed to working with auditors' reports and having been an auditor, I would say that yes, R.H. Smith do a very good job. Their reports are well organized and very easy to read. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's another good point. Lay people and members of the public, not saying that you're a lay person, but members of the public should be able to read them too. So we're gonna vote on this today? Is that your hope? Okay. So can I have a motion to approve R.H.R. Smith and Company as our auditor for the next 3 years?
Motion, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the R.H.R. Smith and Company as our auditor for the next 3 years. Is there further discussion on the board? Any comments in the room? Any comments online? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to mowing services for the town properties and the cemetery properties.
So I solicited 7 different companies and did not receive one
Really?
proposal
Wow.
for the public buildings or the cemeteries. So, one of the contractors we had for last year, I spoke to them, and they are short-staffed and overextended, so they do not put in a proposal.
Okay.
I talked to another contractor, they're just not doing lawn services anymore. They've gotten away from it because they don't have the staffing. What I've been hearing too is cemeteries are unique and they take time and you have to be careful, and some are big, and you know, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I do have an email into VLCT because at this point, we did not receive any proposals. I'm not certain, but we will have to make a decision about mowing soon.
Yeah.
Whether or not we can just hire somebody at this point. But
Because we did a good faith effort.
yeah,
Okay.
we went by our procedure
Yeah.
to procure, you know, contracts, but
All right.
I might have to beat the bushes or talk to certain people that know other people.
Okay.
Eric.
I'm willing to bid on it. It's just, to put that out there. I do own a mowing company, so it is a conflict of interest, I guess.
Well,
But I guess I felt after, you guys went lowest bidder a couple years ago, and that was kind of a kick in the butt to me. So for somebody who'd done, for quite a while, and what did lowest bidder get you now?
Well, I don't want to get into that.
No, I know, but
I
I have no problem giving you a price.
and I have no problem looking at Brian Harlow's stepson,
Yep.
who can do the same thing. But I want to protect the town
Yep.
and make sure that you're protected as well.
If he wants to do it, let's have him do it,
Not cemeteries.
That's the other, if you're gonna give somebody the town, if somebody's gonna do the cemeteries, they should really have the option to do the town property, because you're right, cemeteries are no fun, to kind of give them a little bonus.
Right.
To have it all, and if they don't want it, that's fine,
Yeah.
but,
And this brings up the discussion too, and I'm gonna put it right on the table right now, is parks and recreation, like Brattleboro, their cemeteries are under Parks and Rec.
they do all the maintenance on all their
They
parks
do
and
all the
cemeteries. Okay.
maintenance on the cemeteries, and there was a comment not too long ago, how this board has to take care of the cemeteries, okay?
Mhm.
So even though we have cemetery commissioners, and as we look at Parks and Rec, we may see a transition where our cemeteries, with maybe a semi-retired person, is willing to mow the cemeteries. I don't know what that looks like, but if we didn't get any proposals this year, it might be like that for, next year. I've only done 2-year contracts only because of what happened last year.
Yeah.
Normally they're 3. I'm all about local contractors, and I've heard it already, and I'm listening, but
Yep.
I think there's gonna be some decisions that, this board will be making in the future, given what we're going through right now. So, but I will get an answer, and we will have to do something.
Yep.
And, I'm in charge of public buildings, I'm not in charge of cemeteries. So cemetery commissioners, if they decide that they want to hire somebody, then it's a recommendation to the board,
Right.
so.
I feel like they've done that in the past. What properties besides the cemeteries are we talking about?
So we have town hall, we have library, we have fire department, the pool, and then we have the green space on the sidewalks.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty much the co-op all the way up to the school and basketball.
Okay. So it's not like acres and acres and acres, but that's
There's
still
a lot of mowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus you'd have to move your equipment around it. So.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So, yeah, if it's not a conflict, then fine, and
I don't think it's a conflict for a member of the board to put in a bid.
it's perception.
There's the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I guess it would be better if it was during a bidding process rather than just flat out hiring, is my opinion.
We can put it back up to bid
Obviously,
again.
you would recuse yourself if we were voting for it. I mean, that's the purpose of the conflict of interest policy, is to make sure that the community can still function.
Right.
The
The other thing too about putting out a mowing proposal, so when we hire a contractor, we expect they're gonna have insurance, a certain amount of insurance and workers' comp.
Yeah,
So some smaller companies don't have that.
right.
So then we have to go into a totally different agreement, which I tend to try not to do that. So not everybody can bid, and I
Yeah.
think that's a barrier when it comes to putting out a request.
Yeah. All right, so you're gonna talk to BLCT,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully we'll not have too long grass before
Okay.
before we get it resolved.
Karen, where would the funds come from, the budget, to support this?
We already have money in the budget for mowing,
Okay.
for both cemeteries and public buildings. So,
Separate items.
separate items, yep. The other thing too is, given the cost, after 2 years, we're gonna probably be looking at, higher contract amount. But, it's the nature of the beast, you just can't predict it, I mean, what do you get right now an hour?
It's usually by the job, but lawnmowers, when I started, they were 8 to 10,000, now they're 15 to 20. Everything's gone up, just like everything.
You haven't got an electric one yet?
Nope.
Come on. That might be a criteria too down the road, they have electric and not gas. Just like our highway department, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Let's not go down that road right now. So I do have comments online. Heather?
I just had a question regarding workman's comp and insurance and things like that. If you hire an individual relation to somebody within town employment or not, how does that affect your bottom line when it comes to workman's comp insurance? And does that affect how the budget goes to hire somebody to mow as compared to somebody who already has their own workman's comp and regular insurance?
So if they have their own, it's better. The thing is, if they don't have it, Heather, what we have to do is that person has to sign like a contract with the town. And when we get audited, if we don't have that paperwork, then we get slapped with a fine. And there's really no liability on us, so they pretty much sign off that, you know.
Whatever happens, happens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But still, it's better if they have
What about property damage?
that too, they have to have, you
Okay.
know. We did have a claim last year, at the library, so rock went through the glass door window and it
That's
cracked
right.
it.
Yeah.
And, so, of course, I put it through our insurance, but they went after the contractor's insurance.
Right.
So, that's the liability, but it protects the town,
Right.
so.
Okay. Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, this question of conflict of interest is something that often happens in Vermont on select boards because there are not many of us around and there's even fewer of us who provide particular services. Now, I just want to confirm one detail with the town manager. Do I understand correctly, town manager, that you did not receive a bid from select person McGowan's company?
I did not receive any bids from anyone.
Okay, thank you. I encourage select person McGowan to submit a bid, and I shall personally defend him against any allegations of conflict of interest, because the interest here is not just Mr. McGowan, it is his employees. And I know, because they work where I live, that he has quite a few employees, all of whom get to make a living by doing landscaping work and plowing the snow in the wintertime, which I suppose is another kind of landscaping. But anyway, there is no reason whatsoever to exclude a member of a select board from providing a service like that, when in fact the member of the select board has a number of employees, all of whom will benefit in a very specific way in which we all benefit, and that is being able to earn a living unless we happen to be retired like me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments on the board about the mowing situation? Any comments in the room? Any other comments online? All right, moving on to the Windham County Humane Society contract renewal, review and approval. So we do this every year, right?
Annual renewal, yes.
Okay,
The flat fee went up a little bit, it's now $811, and by state statute, we have to have an animal impoundment facility,
okay,
and this is the only one in our area.
okay. So can I have a motion to approve the Windham County Humane Society as our, what did you just call it? Impoundment facility?
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the Windham County Humane Society as our impoundment facility. Is there further discussion among the board? Comments in the room? Comments online? All in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Would you like me to sign this?
Yes. So can I have a friendly amendment to authorize Karen to sign?
So moved.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the Windham County Humane Society as our impoundment facility and authorize Karen to as the signer. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along to the ARPA discussion. Did you had some?
Yeah, I would just like to keep moving us little bit by little bit towards ARPA action, I would call it. So I just want to remind us that the ARPA committee that doesn't exist anymore made 3 recommendations: to invest the funds in an interest-bearing account, to hire a consultant to help with the ARPA process, and to continue to include public input into the process. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the idea of the consultant, but the other thing I wanted to talk about is I thought it would be helpful for us to, as a select board, since we're the ones who are tasked with making decisions about this, to agree about what we feel that the priorities are for ARPA, so that there's that direction. We've had conversations in select board meeting, the ARPA committee had many conversations about priorities, and I have a recommendation of 3 priorities that I'd like to put out and have us discuss them. Does that work? Okay. So I think that the 3 priorities should be positive and long-term impact on a broad range of Putney community members. The second one is that we leverage any projects, leverage the ARPA funds via state and local grants, other funds, so that that should be a priority. And the third priority I propose is that any projects support priorities that are identified via community input, such as the library survey, the town planning process, and the VCRD process, so that we would prioritize things that the community has already spent a lot of time identifying as priorities. So I just would like to put those out as our 3 criteria when it comes to trying to evaluate what we're going to spend money on.
Okay. I mean, that's very broad.
Yeah, it is broad, but it's
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think I agree with that approach, and I'm hoping that we can narrow it down through these processes to specific projects.
I hope
right?
that
So,
we will too, but my point is that, I mean, we have to narrow it down,
right.
but I think we want to narrow it down based on, are they meeting our goal, the goals that the community has already set out, and are we leveraging the funds?
The funds, yeah.
Yeah, and are we doing things that are for the broadest possible benefit to community members? Because there's different ways we could approach this, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think to some extent, anything that we would be leveraging, I guess I'm having a hard time thinking of a project that wouldn't fit those criteria. But I'm sure they're out there. And also there's different opinions about whether something is truly impacting everybody or not. So I think that's a great start. How do we want to move forward with this? Do we want to maybe codify that to some degree and make that a basis for anything that we might discuss in the future? I think it's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good template.
So how do we want to proceed?
Well, so you have a resolution, right?
We had a resolution, yeah.
Not knowing where the task forces are in their process, because we haven't had an update. I'm wondering if we can hold off a little bit. And that might reinforce that right there, or
Okay.
it may change it. all of that. Who knows, right? Do you agree, Peg?
No, I don't agree because I think that no matter what, I think that we can agree to some general priorities like this, which will motivate. I would think the task forces would be happy to know that we as a select board are prioritizing things that the task forces are coming up with. We haven't said that. We haven't made any statement that says, yes, we would like to support the work of the task forces, or we'd like to support the work of the town plan. We haven't agreed. We haven't said anything about that yet. So I think that would be helpful to articulate as a select board.
Okay.
And I'm not proposing a process yet. I have some ideas, but I think this is the first step.
Okay.
And then we have to figure out the process of how we
evaluate
Yes.
those three criteria. I like that. Jeanette?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think one of the reasons that the ARPA committee was unsuccessful was that we didn't agree on any general principles at the beginning. So there were 7 of us, and we all had a different idea of where we were going and what direction we were taking. And I would suggest that there are some other general principles that we heard from VLCT and Windham Regional and everybody we talked to, and they were: think big, the project should be transformative. If you wouldn't spend taxpayer money on it now, don't do it with ARPA money. Don't build base budgets, and don't fund new programs or projects unless you're willing to continue to fund them in the long haul. So, but we could never get to the point where we agreed on general principles. And I think that was the downfall of the committee. So we were all approaching it with a different set of principles in our heads.
Okay.
Can you repeat those things that you just said?
I have them right here, but
I got 2 out of 3 of them, so.
okay.
Transformative.
Okay, think big, they should be transformative. If you wouldn't spend taxpayer money on it now, don't do it with ARPA money. Don't build base budgets. And don't do new programs or projects unless you're willing to continue to fund them for the long haul.
So don't do pilot programs.
Unless if it's truly a pilot program and you're willing to forsake it, and people have the expectation that it's just a pilot, and you may just drop it in the end. But I think once you start funding something, it is really, really hard to drop a program or a funding stream once you've started.
Okay. So further discussion on the board. I have a couple comments online. Swift.
I just wanted to share just quickly for you to know I know there's not an official report from BCRD, but from the 2 committees I've been attending of the community center and the housing is not at a place of asking for specific funds. They're still like really gathering. And I do believe the community center is. I think that they're in a place of looking for grants and figuring out something to support a website as a beginning project. I don't know anything about the planning, the business development task force, but that just throwing those in there as just mini update in terms of specific funds. I also would caution, I mean, when you say this statement out loud, as you have, at least as an individual Peg, not as the whole select board, but it could be distracting to these task forces. Like, oh great, let's find a project for this money. And the way that this process has been so good at, sorry, I'll come on video, I forgot to do that. This process has been so good at getting us to get really detailed and clear first before we dive into something too fast. I'm really appreciating the pace that the task force are going at, and I would caution, I think we have to say, I would ask you to say this out loud, that if that's what the select board is doing, if they are going to prioritize some projects from these task force, I think it should be said. But I think that the leads of those committees need to really make sure that they don't get sidetracked by, oh great, there's money, let's find a project. And that's not your job to pace them, but this piece of recognizing that it could be distracting to the generative pace that those committees are going at. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I feel in general that this pool of money, it could be best served in not supporting projects, specific projects per se that come out of those task force, although that's not off the table, but to support the infrastructure that those might need. Mm-hmm. So, we've been talking about sidewalks, we've been talking about wastewater, we've been talking about water, we've been talking about places, not to park and crosswalks, and a lot of different things have come out recently, and those things take money. They take money to study and they take money to do. And a lot of the projects that the three task force are looking at might not be possible without that infrastructure in place. So to me, that might be where we start. So that's I'm going to stop there. So is there other comments on the board before I bring it back to public comment?
I think it's important to get some of the broad statements, some of the broad agreements down. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important, if we want to put some of the thoughts that Jeanette had on the table, then I feel like we need to discuss whether those are our priorities or not. Or, I guess, what am I trying to say? I think we need to have some general priorities. Like you said, you've got one priority, infrastructure. I've got some priorities that have to do with not whether we fund the VCRD projects. I just want my priority is that the money be spent on things that the community has come forward and identified as priorities. Mm-hmm. That we've had 2.5 really big projects, community projects. The town planning process and the Vermont, not the VCRD, but the VCRD process and the library surveys that the town has really put out what their priorities are. Yeah. And I that's important to me, but I don't know how important that is to other people. So I just think some general statements about what are our priorities, because we're going to have to spend this money, and we as a select board have not yet, we turned it over to the ARPA committee, and the ARPA committee turned it back over, it's now been turned back over to us. Mm-hmm. And we have to make some progress, and I feel like we really need to identify some base priorities. Seems like an important next step.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to try to be diplomatic. So I understand where you're coming from, Peg. I just want to say that through the VCRD process, we had 200 to 300 people at the Putney Central School, and that was a great turnout. The task forces are between maybe 30, 25, and 50 people maybe, right? On any given night that they're meeting. And the town plan too has had low engagement. So I don't feel that the whole community has been represented through some of these processes. So I think we need to be careful when we say prioritize, projects. And
Well, I guess I just asked the question, how would you like to do it? What are some ideas then of what you think should go, or anybody thinks should go? I'm open, I just think we should have some priorities.
the other thing too is that, so the money has to be obligated by 2024, December. Should be probably earlier than that, but it doesn't have to be spent until 2026. So we still have some time, and I also think too, this might be a deeper dive into a work session conversation.
It does sound like it's going that way, yeah. And if we want to get something concrete, as concrete as we can make it we may want to, for this discussion our next meeting.
And I see some priorities too for the town. And so, but I'm kind of waiting to see what the task forces are going to come up with.
I guess when I say the task forces, I don't mean the task forces projects necessarily. I mean the priorities that were set out by the process that involved 300 people. Right, so I'm not saying, oh, this money should go to the task forces. I'm interested in looking at the bigger issue of what did the community define as important issues. Maybe they come from the town, maybe they don't have to come from the task forces necessarily, but we know what priorities were developed by a large group of people. And so if you have a project to me that would meet the criteria. If it was a project that either addressed the town issues that surface in the town plan as priorities, or issues that surface that surfaced in that VCRD process. It's hard for me to imagine that.
There were a lot of intersecting priorities in that, and so I still think it's a useful place to look for inspiration, I guess.
Yeah.
And because they intersected, you could pick one that would benefit all three of those, plus another large swath of the population. So I still think that's the right track. But it does sound like we probably need to hash this out until next week.
I'm open to doing that.
All right.
I would like people to think about what your priorities are, what you think should serve as priorities. And we've got, with the ones that Jeanette just added, you want to pass them on to us?
I have a whole folder of comments and stuff that came out of the ARPA committee, and I would just throw out one word of caution here. I know it's good to do a lot of planning up front. This is not a lot of money. It's $734,000. And if you want to leverage it for really important infrastructure projects or projects in the town, better get on it quick. There is a ton of ARPA money at the state. And if you read every single day, there are millions of those dollars going out to towns who've already used their ARPA money as match for that. So I would just caution you not to take a long time and try and figure this out, because all that leveraging money is going to be gone.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm hopeful that if we have just a few key priorities, we know which direction to go. I feel like if leveraging is a top priority, then that's one of the directions we go. But the select board is not in agreement, or hasn't just. I don't feel
I'm
like
not sure
we
we
have a
even know
sense.
whether we're not in agreement. We have. I mean, this is why we
had a
form
committee. This is why the committee couldn't get itself moving.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
All right. I have more comment online. Mr. Fairman? I think you had your hand up first.
Madam Chair, first, I heartily second what Senator White just said. And I would add to that, I'm having a correspondence with Representative Mowing in this regard right now. And he offers this caution. In the context of what's currently going on in Washington, it is entirely possible that the House of Representatives will decide to rescind the money that has not yet been obligated or spent. So for that reason also, it behooves us to act as quickly as we possibly can, because the money is not necessarily going to be sitting there forever if the House of Representatives moves forward in that direction, and if the Senate is obliged to go along with them to save the debt limit controversy. Now, there are 2 points missing in your discussion. The first one is your actual criteria for deciding what you can spend the money on are in the U.S. Department of the Treasury final rule dated January 2022, which I have been studying. And there really are some very specific requirements. In other words, any possible project that does not meet those requirements is out of consideration. It is somewhat complex, but there is an overview which is much shorter, because the original is in the Federal Register, and like everything in the Federal Register, if you want to read it, it's good to have experience as a biblical scholar. But the overview seems to be complete and correct, and is much, much shorter, and is actually written in the English that we all speak. So I commend that to you, that if you put anything in writing, to mention at least in accordance with the U.S. Department of the Treasury final rule. My other point is that there is not, even if we get some additional grants, clearly with all the projects that are going to be have been proposed and will be proposed, there is not going to be enough money to do everything. Now, something that's missing from your discussion at this point is the actual decision making, and I'm going to, as one says in French, put a flea in your ear, that a special town meeting could be a possibility. And of course, citizens can actually petition that special town meeting, and that would be a time when you could apply ranked choice voting to the question of here are all the projects that are under consideration. What do you think in ranked choice voting? And if you do that, then voters will decide which one is first, which one is second, and so on. Then, of course, the criterion is when the money runs out, we're done. So I'm simply offering those as some considerations for how this could be opened up. And I am cautioning you that all projects will have to abide by the U.S. Department of Treasury final rule. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Heather?
I haven't read the entire thing because there's enough legalese and not to make anybody fall asleep. I am curious, however, given that there's a possibility that the board may or may not choose to support 2 different groups who are many, many, many months away from making any kind of decision as to planning or projects, is it a possibility to commit these monies to a high yield term account?
I think that was one of the
Yes.
recommendations of the ARPA committee. Do you have a specific, that was that, you just said yes?
No, but you still have to have it spent
Right.
by December
Yeah.
26th and committed by December 24.
Right.
And I hate to disagree with Mr. Fairman, but they did put in what's called a standard allowance.
Yeah.
So if the municipality's losses were less than $10 million, less than $10 million, you could take what was called a standard allowance. That meant that the money goes into your general fund, and you can spend it on anything you want. Every town in Vermont qualified for the standard allowance, and I think almost every town took it.
Yeah.
So
We did.
it is now part of your general fund.
Correct.
You can spend it however you want to. You could throw a big party for the select board. I mean, it is your, it is your money, and it's part of the general fund.
Okay. Is there further discussion among the board? Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, I equally am reluctant to disagree with Senator White, but having read the final rule, I would have to ask her if she believes this is actually true to cite where it says it is true, because I have read a number of detailed criteria for which projects are eligible and which projects would be eligible. And in that regard, of course, for now, we can take it under advisement and we can debate it later. But I'm afraid it is not quite as simple as it's in the general fund, and it can be used for anything such as throwing a big party, because there's nothing in the final rule that is anywhere near as permissive as that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, let's take that offline. Is there further discussion among the board right now? Let's put this on our growing
May
agenda
24th.
for May 24th.
I'll take a couple other items off.
We need them all. All
We
right.
haven't agreed what they're gonna be.
We'll
yet,
use our
so.
money for pizza. Okay. So,
Now.
no, let's move on to the Rescue Inc. Town Representative Review, discussion and recommended appointment. So, many moons ago, Jeanette wrote this letter to us. Do we want me to read it again?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. So this was on March 30th. Dear Select Board members, as you might know, one of the areas under my jurisdiction of the Senate committee that I chaired, Senate Government Operations, was EMS statewide. It is a system that is under a lot of pressure and basically is unsustainable as it is currently administered. I will not go into the details, but will just say that if we do not make changes, both small and large, we are in danger of losing this system. The Senate Government Operations Committee made a number of changes, both statutory and administrative, that have resulted in positive changes to the system, but much more needs to be done. In this arena, rescue is seen by many as a model for the state, and we should be proud of that. Because I've been so involved in the topic, when I learned that Putney was in need of a representative to the Rescue Board, I decided I would put my name forward for your consideration. I'd like to work with the Rescue Board to help make sure it is sustainable in our area while continuing my work on the statewide system to hopefully help make the whole system more sustainable. I'd be happy to represent Putney on the Rescue Board if you are so inclined. Thank you for your consideration, Jeanette White. And we did put it out,
Yes.
advertised it, see if we could get any more bites, and I don't think we did.
I have not.
Okay. So, can I have a motion to recommend Jeanette White as a Rescue Inc. what are they? They're board members, right? So it's a recommendation to Rescue Inc. to appoint Jeanette White to their board.
So moved.
Is there a second? So it's been moved and seconded to recommend to Rescue Inc. that they appoint Jeanette White to their board. Is there further discussion among the board? Is there comments in the room?
I was glad to see that you did have executive session on here again, but it didn't say to talk about appointments again. So
No.
this time.
Comments online, Mr. Furman?
Madam Chair, we are fortunate that the ideal candidate to represent the town of Putney on the Rescue Inc. Board of Trustees has come forward, because she is superbly qualified because of her many, many years of experience as chair of the Vermont House of Representatives Committee on Government Operations. There are things happening right now in Rescue Inc. which are really becoming very, very interesting. I've been following this closely. Now, I don't know whether you are aware that as of today, the ambulance service, the Luzio ambulance service that was providing backup to the Keene, to the City of Keene Fire Department for EMS, went out of business. Rescue is replacing them. Now, that is not just in Keene. that is in 5 other towns around Keene, including West Chesterfield. Now, you may recall that a while ago, when Brattleboro decided to withdraw from Rescue Inc., they asked Rescue Inc. if they would provide backup to Golden Cross Ambulance. Golden Cross and Rescue said no, they would not. So they were going to get backup from Greenfield and from Keene. Now the backup from Keene is Rescue. So there are things going on, but meanwhile, there is a new EMS over there run by Cheshire County that is trying to get going. We're in a situation where everything is really in flux at the moment, and where her experience in dealing with very complex issues among contending parties will be invaluable. Now, because it has happened before, where you nominated a trustee and Rescue Inc. said, we will not seat this person. If this happens this time, I encourage you to insist that they seat Senator White. If they actually refuse to do so, I will tell you now that I shall officially ask the U.S. Internal Revenue Service how they feel about an organization receiving public funds, but declining to seat a trustee who is named by the people who are custodians of these public funds, being a Vermont Selectboard. There's something going on there that should not be going on there. It may be that the IRS is going to have to put it right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Heather?
Thanks. Just as a matter of record, I do want to highlight that some of Howard's information is misinformed. Outside of that, I do want to ask the question about making sure that there are no conflicts of interest. We don't go through another round of having somebody seated, accepted, and then refused.
All we can do is nominate somebody. It's Rescue's purview to decide that that person is not suitable for their board. So, yeah.
I don't think there would be any conflict of interest, because I've never served on a rescue board or an EMS board before. We did deal with the issue in our Senate committee, and I'm not employed by them, and I've never been employed by them, and I don't even know how to do CPR.
Unfortunately, not a requirement.
I don't think that, I can't think of any conflict of interest, but if one comes forth, I'll try and deal with it.
Okay, well, like I said, all we can do is nominate somebody, and Rescue has their own process. So in the unlikely event that they find something wrong with your candidacy, we will deal with it then. Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, because a previous speaker has stated that I am misinformed, first, I would suggest that the speaker be asked to state specifically exactly how I am misinformed.
I don't really want to get into a back and forth here. We're just trying to appoint somebody to the Rescue Inc. board, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what's going on in Keene, New Hampshire, or Brattleboro for that matter. So I would prefer to move on if it's okay with everyone else.
Then I shall simply state my sources are the Cheshire County government, the city of Keene, the Keene Sentinel, and the Brattleboro Reformer, and VP Digger. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion among the board? Is there any comments in the room? Any further comments online? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for serving.
So, Madam Chair, I'll just send a letter.
Oh, wait.
Wait, we have to
Yeah.
do this ceremony, although it's not really a town board,
That's right.
but,
Not really a town board.
well, yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's the thank you to you, Jeanette.
I think I earned 5 of those
I
back.
know, but we're only doing it for this year.
I'm
We can't,
feeling like
we-
slighted
we
here.
can't go backwards, so you joined,
Did you hear that, Fletcher?
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, thank you. All right, so, yes.
Eileen, I just want to state that I'll send a letter to the rescue
Okay,
board
yeah,
stating that you voted on
Okay.
Jeanette,
okay.
and then they'll
They'll
have
do
to
their
do their thing.
Yeah, okay. All right, that sounds good. All right, so we're moving on to other business closing comments and SB addenda. On here, we mentioned that we're having a select board work session, May 24th, 2023 at 5:30 PM. I don't think we're gonna have it be on Zoom, right?
No.
Okay. So it's in person only at the town hall.
Yeah.
So we'll
Get
that'll
an
be a-
agenda together.
Okay, so that'll be a special meeting. Are there other closing comments? Any comments online? Any comments in the room? Anything the select board wants to mention? All right, we are going to go into executive session, but before we do that, I just want to say that our next meeting, our regular meeting, is on May 17th, 2023, 5:30 at the town hall and on Zoom. So can I hear a motion to go into executive session under Title I, Section 313A2 to discuss the negotiating or securing of real estate purchase or lease options, and invite Karen and Fletcher and Chris and Nancy into the meeting. And Marie, hi, sorry, I can't count. All right,
So moved.
is there a second? All right, so it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session under Title I, Section 313A2 and invite the folks in previously mentioned. All in favor?
Aye.
All
So-
opposed? And we're not, are we making a decision?
No.
So we're not making a decision.
No.
All right. So we're good. Thank you, everybody.